Hello chess friends and welcome to USSR Chess channel and welcome to our Garry Kasparov saga. So in this series we're following Garry Kasparov's life and his chess career from the year 1981 to 2000. And I'm really glad that I started this series because we all know about Garry Kasparov's career, that he won the World Championship against Anatoly Karpov in 1985, that he played brutal, immortal chess games, for instance, Kramnik, Kasparov 1994, Topalov, Kasparov 1999. But there are so many cool games that Garry Kasparov has played, and if I wouldn't have started this series, I wouldn't know about these games, and they would really slip under my radar. And it's really incredible how many great games Garry Kasparov played, and I will try to cover all of them because every one of them is really a great attacking brilliance. Such as this one that I wanted to show you today. It's a game between Kasparov and Gennadi Timoshchenko, and this was again a game from the 1981 USSR Chess Championship, in which we said Garry Kasparov crushed them all, won the USSR Chess Championship, then could face and play the Interzonal tournament. Then after that, he played the candidates, and then after that, he played against Anatoly Karpov for the World Championship in 1985. So this is again such a great attacking performance by the legendary beast from Baku. Let's check out the game. We're starting again round one fight. So here Garry opened with the move d4, d5, c4, c6, knight to f3. Timoshchenko plays knight to f6. We have knight to c3, and now e6. The Smyslov defense. So black builds, of course, this very powerful pawn center on light squares. When I play this opening, I like to undermine the pressure in the center. I play the exchange variation, but here Garry Kasparov, of course, one of the best attackers in chess history, plays this very aggressive bishop to g5, which now leaves black the opportunity to play d takes c4. The idea behind this move, okay, white has this annoying pin on the queen, but the problem is now that white has problems in order to grab the pawn on c4. So white most of the times will play this very aggressive e4 like Kasparov did, and with ideas to play the move e5. But now it gives black the opportunity to fix the position on the queen side to get these four pawns connected. Also a6 is a possibility to build a pawn chain on light squares, and Timoshchenko allows now Kasparov to do the spinning idea with the move e5, which is still common theory. Nothing special has happened, but it's really an aggressive line, one of the most aggressive lines of the Smyslov defense. Here we have h6, so black will recapture also a pawn, but with some loss of material on the king side. Here, after the move bishop to h4, we have g5, and now the common line is knight takes g5. We want to stay with our pin here against the knight, so now the main theory is, of course, knight to d7. Now white has to take. E takes f6. If you take with the bishop, that's not a good. Then we can take knight takes f6, queen takes f6 will follow. So here you have to take with the pawn, and now let's stop a little bit. It's really an asymmetrical pawn structure. It's really a dynamic position. So of course, Garry Kasparov loves these types of positions. So that's why he played that opening in the first place. Here, after the move e takes f6, what to do now from black's perspective? Black will probably not castle, of course, on the king side because white has a dominant pawn on f6. So white would simply sneak in with the queen and deliver checkmate probably. So the main idea about this setup of blacks is to play bishop to b7 and castle queenside, because that's where we have the pawn majority. As I said, we have a 4 versus 2 situation on the queen side, and we want to use these 4 pawns as a shield when we castle on the queen side. But Garry Kasparov plays a very interesting idea, g3. Tricky move, because it allows now, of course, Timoshchenko to open the position with the move c5, and this creates, of course, a direct attack against the rook on h1. But what black has done here is also that black doesn't have any more the firm pawn structure. The c6, b5 are not connected anymore, so this b5 pawn is a little bit loose. Now Garry plays this very aggressive d5. What to do now? If you try here b4 in the game queen to b6, I've analyzed the variation. What happens if you play b4, because it seemed to me like a normal move. Of course, we want to deflect the knight from the defense of d5, and then bishop takes d5 will happen, and black will still have this compact position. But here Kasparov prepared really a brutal attack, because now we could play simply bishop takes c4. it is a piece sacrifice. If you play the b takes c3, then you get here d takes e6. If you take here the rook, then you get checkmated on f7 with the pawn. Incredible opening preparation here by Garry. What you could do maybe is queen to c7 to create some kind of a breathing space, but now we can simply take the knight. E takes d7, queen takes d7, king takes d7, and now the tricky part is queenside castling. Now king to c7 would be a forced line maybe here, but now bishop to f4, king to c8, and now rook to e1 is losing the game immediately for black, because there is always this tactical threat to play rook to e8. Even if you try something like c takes b2, king takes b2, and create a connection between the rook and the king, preventing some rook to e8 ideas, we can simply take bishop takes h6. You see how locked this dark bishop of blacks is. Bishop takes h6, rook takes h6, and now rook to e8. Even if you play something like king to c7, I think rook to e7, and we can grab this pawn, push this pawn further. We can also play rook to d7, connecting the rooks on the 7th rank, attacking the bishop. So it's game over here for black. So you see how tricky and dynamic this opening is. After the move d5, Timoshchenko plays queen to b6, and now we have bishop to g2. Queenside castling, we have kingside castling by Kasparov, and now we have an opposite side attack game in which black is forced, of course, to do something here on the king side, maybe an attack on the h file, or maybe to get this bishop somehow into the game, maybe also something like rook to g8. But Kasparov will not allow counter-attack possibilities on the king side. He'll play a very active game here on the queen side. In the game b4 now finally, played by Timoshchenko, knight to a4, queen to b5, and now a3. Here you could try maybe this move d takes e6 instead of a3, but it's a bad position now for white suddenly, because we have bishop to g2, king takes g2, and now queen to c6. Solves all of the positional problems of blacks. You have to remove the king somewhere, and now queen to e6 is a perfect position. Still, we're hanging on to our 4 versus 2 situation on the queen side, and the position is a little bit splashed. But white doesn't have any more some great attacking possibilities. Even knight to f6 is a possibility to open the d file, but I think a normal bishop to d6 is solving, as I said, the positional problem. So it's not a good line. So that's why Garry Kasparov played a3, and here Timoshchenko plays knight to b8, forcing now really the tension here around the square d5. In the game, a takes b4, c takes b4, played by Timoshchenko, and now bishop to e3. Here Kasparov leaves now simply the position like this. On the d5, we have bishop to d5, bishop takes d5, rook takes d5, and now queen to e2. Okay, Timoshchenko grabbed the pawn. But this bishop on b7 was also a very important defensive piece in front of black's king. Now there are, you see, a lot of spaces in front of black's king. So, of course, Garry Kasparov will try to use them, because black has expanded this pawns too far a little bit. If this pawns would have been, of course, on b7 and c7, this would be a perfect defense. Then, finally, black could try some counter-attack possibilities on the king side. But here, Timoshchenko tries knight to c6, brings another defender into the game, and now rook to c1, played by Garry, and we have now knight to f5. Here I want you to stop a little bit, and let's find now the next attacking move for Garry Kasparov. It's really a great splitting move. It's really creating new dynamics in the game. Pause the video and try to find really the next attacking move. It's really sort of a Garry Kasparov move, and in this particular position, Garry Kasparov finds the move b3. This is, of course, a very, very risky move, because what Garry Kasparov has probably calculated is the move knight to b3. Knight to b3 isn't a possibility, because you get rook takes c4. After king to b7, queen to c2, and if you take the rook, you get checkmated. That's the main problem here. Rook to c8 and queen to c7 is, of course, checkmate. So that's why after the move b3, here c3 was played, and now Garry Kasparov really, I'm not sure what to say anymore. He plays a very, very risky move, a knight takes c3. This deserves really a Mortal Kombat laugh, because he sacrifices the knight. Of course, if you take queen to e2, then knight to e2 will happen. You see it comes with the discovered attack on the king. The position is finally open now for the rooks. We can include this knight into the game. The bishop will come into the game. Even knight to d4 is a possibility. So it's really a great position now for white, because black doesn't have any more the counter-attack possibilities. A potential rook to h5 can always be met with h4, and black doesn't have anything here on the king side. So here after the move knight to c3, you see b takes c3 and now rook takes c3. Garry Kasparov sacrifices the knight and gives now black some headaches, because what to do? Here in the game, Timoshchenko tried king to d7. We have queen to c2, bishop to d6, and now rook to c1. If you try something like, I don't know, maybe a rook to h7, let's see, a dubious move, then you get checkmated. That's the main problem here of blacks. After bishop takes c7, queen to c7, king to e8, and now queen to e7 is checkmate. So that's the tactical threat that we should always consider. So in the game, after the move rook to c1, here in the game, queen to b7 was played, because Timoshchenko has to cover, of course, this very important c7 square. But now Garry plays another sacrifice, b4. He sacrifices again another pawn in order to again open the position, in order to activate his pieces. Of course, if you take with the bishop, then you're not covering anymore the c7 square, and your queen is lost. So that's why queen to b4 is played. Now this idea to play rook to c7 doesn't work, as the queen is covering. You saw we delivered this checkmate on e7. So that's why here it's not possible so far. The queen is covering that square, so rook to c7 doesn't work. But that wasn't Garry Kasparov's plan anyway. He played rook to b1. You see now he occupies the b file, the c file. Now the rooks and the queen are playing in perfect harmony. In the game, queen to g4 was played, and now Garry grabs the pawn. We have e5 here by Timoshchenko, and now very important move, queen to a2, attacking the pawn on the rook on d5. If you try something like queen to h3 to deliver some checkmate, it can be always met with f3, and again white has solved all of the positional problems. If you try something like queen to e6 in order to protect the rook, then you get checkmated with queen to a4. You see how great this attack is by Garry. King to d8, and now bishop to d6. You have to bring the bishop in between, bishop to c7, king to c8, and now rook to b8. Again, is a great checkmate. So after the move queen to a2, Timoshchenko tries rook to d1. It's a forced move, because at least it gives some tempos on the king. But after king to g2, what to do now? If you try something like knight to c6, maybe to bring back the knight into the game, then again you get queen takes f7. That was also a great calculation here by Kasparov. You cannot cover with the bishop. If you try king to c8, rook takes c6 will follow, and again it's game over. So that's why after the move king to g2, queen to h5 was played, but now Garry Kasparov plays queen to a4 anyway. We have king to e6, and now, as I said, this is the main defensive idea. h4, nothing can be done here. You cannot protect the knight anymore. And finally, Garry Kasparov grabs the piece. We have rook to a8, and now queen to a4, king to f6, and now queen to d7. The queen is sneaking in. Of course, the threat is also rook to f3 in the game. King to g7, rook to f3 anyway. Queen to c4, protecting everything. But now after queen to d6, rook takes a7, we have queen to e5, king to h7, rook to f5, and in this position Timoshchenko resigned. What to do? If you try, I don't know, some trades of queens, then you get checkmated here with rook to h5, so it's game over. Great attack again by Garry Kasparov. So as I said, we all know about this great attacking performances of Garry's, but these games are really incredible, and I think in the future we'll see more and more of them, as now Garry Kasparov was 19 years old only here, so he will evolve. He will, of course, become stronger and stronger, and his attacks will become stronger and stronger. But this was really an incredible attack with this great knight sacrifice. Incredible game again by the legendary beast from Baku. Okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. If you want to see more games like this, check out my other videos from this Garry Kasparov saga. And if you want to see the best chess games by other players, check out my best chess games of all time series. Here's the link. And if you like this content, you can also subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.